Excellent. And we are live. Welcome everyone to this brief YouTube live. I just got back into Singapore. We've had a couple of really busy days here in Europe. Luggage actually came directly from the airport. And I thought I'm gonna give you a couple of updates that I have here from the meetings I had with the European Parliament. For those that don't know, I'm part of some work groups with the European Parliament, all kinds of different topics. Some topics are public, some topics are not public, and I'm not allowed to share some information there. But yeah, whatever I'm allowed to share, I will share. And I want to talk about some key takeaways. I think these are really relevant. They're relevant for potential crypto investors. They're really relevant for blockchain companies. And while obviously I do have my own company with 10x, I also want to support the ecosystem, so it's really important. Remember, when you're coming in, drop me a quick line, where you're coming in from. If you get value out of these things, give me a thumbs up. If you give me a thumbs up, YouTube ranks these things and people see that. Please also understand, this is my personal channel. On my personal channel, it's really about making people crypto fit. So I'm going to talk about everything crypto. I will not focus on 10x here. We have a separate company channel where we talk about 10x. So please don't post any questions about 10x. If you do, I will not respond because that's not the topic here. Here, I really want to be an ambassador for crypto in general. So I hope that makes sense. And that's also if you're interested. If you're here for 10x, switch over to the company channel and we're all good and set. So let's go in. Also, we always do these in English and then afterwards in German. So if you only speak German, no worries. You can just wait a bit, then we're going to do the live in English and in German as well. So let's talk about a couple of takeaways. The first very key takeaway was that the EU is looking to establish some kind of blockchain standards. The EU is quite aware that Bitcoin, blockchain, decentralization is going to be here to stay. It's also been quite obvious that the only kind of cryptocurrency right now that they see as a real cryptocurrency is kind of Bitcoin. For them, even Ethereum, they have some challenges, especially because of the ICO. So there's just a lot of questions around this. But especially with Bitcoin, I think the EU, we had one of the commissioners speak, and he didn't say that he was a big fan of Bitcoin, but he accepts that it's there. And obviously the EU is looking into establishing some standards, also establishing some blockchain connector standards, because that's also something that's going to be relevant. And obviously a lot of people have been asking, Julian, why do you invest time in this, right? Why do you go there? Why do you spend an entire morning there? What do you get out of this, right? And a couple of things, for example, obviously winners anticipate, losers react. So it's always interesting to kind of know these things really early, right? So if you're a business owner here or you are a crypto investor, you always try to anticipate, right? You always want to be ahead of the curve. You always want to be ahead of the wave. And while information is not that relevant many times, it's all about connections and it's all about relationships. And I think, well, that's always what these things are around, right? If you grab the right people and you get to connect with the right people and you deliver value, you get value back. And so one of the things, for example, obviously that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show the European Union how Comet could really help there. Comet, an open source protocol that we're soon going to reveal a prototype, and hopefully by the end of the year, we have it ready for everyone to build on top with libraries. And so I kind of demoed a bit, showed around what is possible with such a protocol, comet.network. That's really interesting. And that was a real key takeaway because the EU is trying to find a standard, and obviously, and that's always a big discussion there, right? Where should the standard be coming from? Should the standard be coming from us as the community, as the companies, as the entrepreneurs, or should it come from the regulator? And obviously, I have a very clear stance, which is it should come from us, from the community. But obviously, then they say, well, it should come a bit more from the regulator. And so this is always a very interesting kind of discussion. In general, this interoperability is given a high focus. And I think that was something that was also really interesting. I had, aside of the panel discussions that I was in and all the Q&A I was involved in, I think there's a lot of value at these things, meeting one-on-one with people around or, people aside. I met with Eva Chiali. She leads this entire kind of team at the European Parliament. And I met with a couple of others, really important players. And it's just very relevant. And I can highly encourage any kind of company or any kind of investor, to kind of learn and stay on top of the game there. So this was really important. The second thing that was highly discussed, obviously, is ICOs. And it was discussed how to distinguish between scams and ICOs, what will be potential things going forward. And I'm not allowed to share too much there, but I can just tell you that there will be a huge slashback for some kind of blockchain, some kind of cryptocurrencies that are not playing really by the rules and are right now, and there have been names thrown around, and I was kind of amazed, right? I think the EU is paying a lot of attention, and they're not scared of really kind of going against hundreds, if not thousands of projects that are not sticking to some kind of rules. And let's see how that's going to play out in the next couple of months, maybe even years, right? This is a big call out, a shout out to all the projects that are trying to kind of think just because something doesn't happen right now, that this doesn't mean that something is going to happen in the future. There was also this discussion on security tokens. And for those that are quite new, I made a video on security tokens, but basically a security token means you have some kind of financial incentive, some kind of financial right. In the US, the security is quite well defined. The European Union does not have a definition for what's a security token. And so there was a lot of discussion how this could look like, what would be easier ways for ICOs to be kind of done in a simpler way. There was a lot of these discussions on regulation, and I think the EU wants to be innovative there. I think there's just a lot of challenges or questions on how this could look like, what this should be look like, what would be the individual kind of settings or the individual kind of things that would be relevant to have as a solid security ICO, if you want to call it. There will also be some kind of regulation, and I don't want to share too much there, but some kind of regulation on what does it mean if a company wants to use the term blockchain. I think that's going to be very interesting going forward. Is any company allowed to use the term blockchain, or what does this mean? And I think that would be very interesting. What the EU also said is that they don't want to regulate ICOs directly, because if they regulate it at the moment, they're only regulating the platform. And so they don't want to go and regulating, and they don't want to go and regulate the platform, which would be Ethereum as the largest platform, because they say that's not the intent, right? So there needs to be some kind of different ways. I mean, obviously you could always go away and say consumers are not protected at all. It's up to them. I had a bit of a standpoint, and I was kind of vocal about this, and I said, in my opinion, regulation many times actually doesn't help. It's way too slow. My point on regulation was there should be a bit more education, there should be more some example setting, and then some individualism. I think you can't just go and have a very clear regulation, because entrepreneurs are going to be smart and they're going to bypass that. Talking about standards and all these things, I really kind of focused on, my stance was that, it's really about solving a problem and about approaching a problem. And only if this happens, then it kind of makes sense to adopt it. And I received a lot of agreement from many people, because there's so many companies right now who are just there and they create the term blockchain. So I think this was quite interesting. Another topic was obviously AML, money laundering, and we had a lengthy discussion on how to avoid money laundering with blockchain and how to decrease the fear in banks, right? Which is also a topic that's quite relevant in this entire theme, because in general, banks right now, one of the reasons they're hesitant working with crypto companies is just this theme of being a bit, worried on what's happening to the money laundering side. And it's actually not that we as companies can avoid this. We as companies have an easy way to avoid money laundering in crypto, but it's just this fear with these companies. And I think that is something that was quite relevant. I kind of scared everyone a bit. I had a couple of minutes as a presentation, and I told them, look at what happened to transaction fees over the past years. At the moment, banks are being hit by this, any kind of transaction company. Now, when blockchains get connected, and this is something that we at 10x really want to do, is going forward, we want to actually make all these silos out there get connected. And once these silos get connected, imagine what happens to any business that's just on transaction fees, not delivering any kind of service or value just sitting there because the customer can't go directly to the supplier. So I told him, just imagine this is all going to crack down. And if you are in a business right now that's purely there because the consumer doesn't have access to something, this access is going to come with connecting blockchains. And that's going to disrupt many, many, many industries that are right now built on access, purely built on trust. And it's going to come to many other things that are going to be very relevant and very important. And it was just really interesting to see kind of the reactions. In general, I think it was very interesting to see the direction in how the direction on how many people are thinking, going a bit away from cryptocurrencies, more into blockchain in general. And yeah, I think that was very, very relevant and very interesting, I think, going forward. So quite some interesting things. And yeah, so that's just some kind of key takeaways. EU, definitely very positive, very optimistic. They do a lot of work groups, and this helps. Yeah, if you have any questions on this, let me know in the comments below. And other than that, see you at the next live. Subscribe to our channel. All the best. Have a nice Friday. Bye-bye.